and retiring from politics at the time. Joining me now to discuss this, Victorian Shadow Minister for Industry and Economic Growth, Jess Wilson. Well, I tell you what, Jess, I mean, over his time in office, $650,000 for a state treasurer. As I said, he's not the foreign minister. I mean, I reckon that's obscene. But $72,000 for one trip. I mean, that's a home deposit in Victoria.
That's right. It's eye-watering when it comes to the fact it's Victorian taxpayers' money. It's not the Victorian government's money, it's taxpayers' money. And it just demonstrates once again that the Allen Labor government here in Victoria does not have its priorities right. The Premier must justify how she allowed her outgoing Treasurer, her outgoing Minister for Economic Growth, to jet set over to Europe on an international farewell tour just 2 months before he pulled the pin and retired. It's absolutely outrageous, particularly, Peta, in a state that has the highest debt in the country, the highest taxes in the country. And in the coming years, Victorians will be paying more than $1 million an hour in interest repayments alone on that eye-watering debt.
$1 million an hour. And of course, a lot of this debt growth occurred under his watch. He's basically just washed his hand, walked out the door. Even the acting Premier today, Ben Carroll, a former colleague, he struggled to justify it. Have a listen.
These trips have to be justified. They have to provide value for the taxpayer. And like all my trips, you write a written report and you justify it and you highlight what economic activity it's produced. And I look forward to seeing the written reports that's done on this one.
Would you have taken the same trip if you were in his shoes?
No.
A written report after the guys left is a joke, but I mean, you and I have both worked in politics behind the scenes. You are right to point out he couldn't just go on this trip unless Jacinta Allen signed it off. She signed this off.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the Treasurer put out a media release the day he was leaving Victoria to go on this international jaunt. And this isn't the first trip he's taken this year either. Earlier in the year, he went off to the US and Canada. And both on that trip and his trip to Europe in October, the Treasurer was over there trying to sell off Victoria's debt, meeting with Canadian pension funds, meeting with the Bank of England, the Bank de France, to actually try and sell Treasury bonds here in Victoria. So instead of going overseas to grow Victoria's economy, to find investment, he was actually going over there to grow Victoria's debt. It flies in the face of respect when it comes to Victoria's taxpayer money.
You're not wrong. Hey, before you go, there was a press conference today. We played a little bit there with Ben Carroll, who's the acting Premier. But the police sent their helicopter to circle his press conference to send a very clear message about their long-running pay dispute. I mean, given the crime crisis in this state, Jess, surely this has got to be resolved now as a matter of urgency.
It absolutely does. And it just goes back to the point here, Peter, that this government cannot manage money. Because of the state of the finances here in Victoria, because of the fact Victoria's net debt is set to soar to $188 billion by 2028, they cannot sit down with Victoria Police and find a fair pay deal. And the consequences of that is that we have the highest youth crime rates since 2009. We have the highest number of criminal incidents ever since the Statistics Agency started. That means that people don't feel safe in their homes, they don't feel safe in their small businesses, and they don't feel safe on the streets. And it's a direct result of the financial mismanagement in this state.
And the Libs are going to fight hard, stay united, and actually take the fight up to this government. You've had a rocky couple of years now. There's 2 years to go before the next poll. Where are we headed, Jess?
We have to work united. We have to work as a team because Victorians deserve a government that is going to put them first. They deserve a government that is going to treat with their taxpayer money with respect. They deserve a government that is going to take responsible decisions to make sure that we are investing where the state needs it, in our hospitals, in our police, in our frontline services, not in a train line, the suburban rail loop that's going to cost over $200 billion. We want to get our priorities right, present that to the Victorian people and make sure we see a change of government here in 2 years' time.
Well, good on you, Jess. Thank you for joining me tonight. All right, after the break, the pressure's on as residents demand answers from the Democratic